Hello everyone, in this video let us do a quick comparison of Scrum and Kanban, and finally we'll talk about in which case Scrum is more suitable methodology and where Kanban is more applicable. Now when you talk about Scrum basically has a product or a project backlog, and this project backlog is nothing but list of different stories or maybe the features that you want to develop. Now backlog is nothing but list of activities that you think that you need to do, and this is usually defined by your product manager. So there is a concept of or there is a role called product owner, and this product owner is nothing but a person who is usually your business analyst. And these people, they have the requirement, they basically talk to the stakeholders and they know what needs to be delivered. And product owner along with your Scrum Master will basically define what needs to be delivered when it needs to be delivered. So there is a role called Scrum Master, and Scrum Master is usually your project manager. And of course you have a team. And when we talk about team, we have of course let us say developers in case we are talking about the software development project, or we have testers and so on. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when you talk about the product backlog, you basically pick the items that you want to deliver. And in Scrum, there is a concept of sprint or an iteration, which is nothing but a time-bound approach where there is a duration of, let us say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So the whole idea here is to make sure that you deliver something which is a small feature or a working prototype, or it is something that you can demo to your client or stakeholders. So you basically deliver something that is more or less like a complete small feature on its own that can actually be delivered. And you basically pick the items from the backlog where you have different stories, and you can have 50 or 100 stories, and it has the complete list of what needs to be delivered. So in the beginning, you may have, let us say, 100 items in the backlog, and your product owner along with the Scrum Master, they will sit together and they will do something which is called as backlog grooming. So when you talk about backlog grooming, you basically define the order or the priority of items that need to be delivered. Now, when you finish your backlog grooming, you basically pick the items from the top and you select them into your sprint. Now, sprint, as I mentioned before, is nothing but a time boxed or time bound approach where you start with your sprint 0 or sprint 1. Let me explain in a moment what is sprint 0. So in the beginning, you basically define what needs to be delivered, and you have a team of, let us say, 3 or 4 developers and maybe 1 tester and maybe a few other people who are working on the sprint. So in the beginning, you sit together and you define that in the next 2 weeks, we will deliver something out of these huge list of items in the backlog. You pick, let us say, 10 of them, and you also decide how long it will take for you guys to deliver. So you basically ask your developers that please tell me, for developing this feature or this story, do you need maybe 2 days or 3 days, or maybe how do you want to estimate in number of hours? Or there is also a concept of story points. So we'll not talk about the estimation in this video. We will probably make a separate video on estimation, how to estimate your activities. But the whole idea here is to make sure that you agree on items that you can deliver, and you discuss it with your team. So in the beginning, you are not always sure how much work you can deliver, and that is why there is a concept of sprint 0, because after your sprint 0, you will figure out and you will come to know how much you can potentially deliver in the next sprint. And after sprint 1, you will also come to know about what you delivered in sprint 0 or sprint 1. And after every sprint, you will have more knowledge and understanding of your team and the challenges. And in the beginning, your estimation might not be perfect, but as you proceed further, and it really depends also on the Scrum Master and of course your team, how experienced they are in using or adopting Agile methodologies for delivering. Now, when I mentioned earlier that there is a concept of of delivery and how much you can deliver. The term that is commonly used is called as a capacity. Amount of work that you can deliver or you have been delivering is something known as a capacity. So let us say you estimated that you will deliver, let us say, 20 story points. This is your estimation that you did, but you were able to deliver or achieve only 15. And in sprint one, you planned for, let us say, 20 again story points, but you delivered, let us say, 18. And in sprint three, you planned for again 20, but you delivered maybe 16. So when you take an average of 15 plus 18 plus 16, you will get a number, or you can basically take an average of these three numbers, and you will get somewhere around, let us say, 16 or maybe 15 point something, or you will get some idea about, let us say, based on your previous three sprints, your team is able to handle around 16 story points comfortably. So this is your capacity. And when you plot this graph, or when you plot this progress on a graph, it is known as the velocity chart. So again, let us not get into the details of the tracking, how you track your sprints and how you forecast. There is also a concept of burn down chart, but in this video, the focus is to understand the difference of Scrum and Kanban. Now, again, when we talk about these sprints, there is a concept of a board, and board is nothing but a visual interface. It could be a physical board, it could be a board on a tool like Jira, where you have different items. Let us say if we talk about sprint one, where you initially plan to deliver 4 stories, you basically monitor this board every day, and on a regular basis, you just keep an eye on this particular board. So let us say you are delivering your story one. So at any given point, you will get an idea about how many stories are in progress, for example. So let us say you have your story one, which is right now, let us say, in progress, and eventually it will be delivered. You can not delivered, but it will be finished. It is ready to be released. So at any given point, your board will tell you the progress and your status of where you are in terms of whether you will be able to deliver the work on time. And let us say if you are looking at this board at the end of your sprint, you just have 2 more days to finish your sprint, and you have, let us say, a lot of items that are still pending. Ideally, that shouldn't happen, because you will have your daily stand-up meetings with your team member. So the whole idea of Agile is that if something is about to go wrong, you should ideally fix it early in your sprint. And that is why there is a concept of daily stand-ups, where you will ask your team members what you did yesterday, what are you going to do today, is something blocking you, and you will take appropriate measures regularly and early, so that you don't end up with a situation where you have just 2 days left and you still have not finished your work completely. And it is still okay if you're not able to finish, let us say, all the stories. You can maybe take them in the next sprint, which is ideally the case, because if you're not able to finish something, it will go back to the backlog on top, and you can then handle it in the sprint which is upcoming. Now, after every sprint, you will also deliver something, and that is the whole idea, where you want to basically make sure that whatever you are trying to do, let us say you have finished maybe story 3 as well, and you basically release it. So this release, where you are actually delivering something working, it is a working prototype, it should be a complete feature in itself. And after various sprints, let us say you are working on a project which will last for a few months. So maybe you will have some sprints in future where you will do an integration, because when you have these sprints and where you have some release after every sprint, these sprints, or the way you design your project, is these releases should be able to integrate. The whole idea should be modular, so that you can basically keep on adding more modules to your overall project. Now, we were talking about the release of your package, and when you finish your sprint you deliver something, but you should also do a retrospective. And retrospective is nothing but a meeting where you discuss with your team members how we can improve. If you were not able to finish everything, what was the reason? Maybe you were trying to do more than your capacity. So this is something that you need to do in your Scrum. Again, estimation is important because we need to estimate the work, because we are trying to deliver something in a planned manner. And usually with the projects, there is a budget involved, so estimation is kind of important in most of the cases. We also talked about backlog grooming and reordering the items in the right order based on, let us say, the priority and the need of the project. So rank basically defines the order of your work. And at the same time, if you need to group your stories into different epics, you can also do that. So epic is nothing but a big story, and it is usually a combination of few stories together. And in tool like Jira, you have the capability where you can create an epic and you can have multiple stories part of an epic, and it is totally optional if you want to use epics or not. Similarly, you have features. We'll probably not talk about those aspects in this video, but this is more or less how you will work on Scrum. And let us talk about Kanban now. Now, if you talk about Kanban, the concept of Kanban also has a board. So the board part is similar. You have maybe a similar visual board where you have to do in progress and done column, where you have, of course, maybe stories or tasks. Let us say we have different activities. You can call them stories. But you are also doing the same thing here. You are keeping track of these items when they are in progress and when they are in done column. And again, just like Scrum, this board will tell you how you're progressing on delivering. Now, the main difference here is that there is no sprint, there is no time-bound approach. You will run your Kanban board continuously, and whenever you think it is appropriate, let us say after 1 week or 2 weeks or whenever it is needed, you can just package your items from the done column and you can release them. So this is something which is different in Kanban. You're not really planning like Scrum. There is no concept of doing your Scrum meetings where you sit down together with your team members and the product owner and Scrum Master will discuss what needs to be delivered in the next 2 weeks. You just keep on working on items that will keep on coming from maybe your backlog, and it is a continuous process. So you will have work coming in from maybe your project. So there is no iteration, and at the same time there is no planning, and it is a continuous. Now, how it is different from Scrum and where exactly Scrum will fit better, and in some cases Kanban is more appropriate. So let us do a quick recap of what we did. So in Scrum, again, you have a backlog. You also have a backlog in Kanban. You don't have a sprint in Kanban. So this is the main difference that we just discussed. In Kanban, you just release whenever you're ready. But in Scrum, you need to agree on your sprint duration, which is usually 2 weeks. And in Scrum, since we are making sure, and we have to make sure that we deliver something after every 2 weeks, and we need to improve. So there is a retrospective, but in Kanban, there is no need for retrospective because there is actually a continuous process. And finally, if we talk about the cases where Scrum is more relevant. Scrum is definitely more relevant when you talk about software development projects, because in software development projects, you need to do some planning. You have some activities in your mind that needs to be delivered, and you do some proper designing, and it requires some effort, and you have to make sure that you succeed, because without proper planning, without estimation, without making sure what team you need, it will be a bit hard to do or to deliver work on ad hoc basis. It is not the case exactly in Kanban as well. We are not really doing ad hoc work, but Kanban is more applicable where you are doing support, because if you look at the board, if you go back to the board, we talked about the work will keep on coming. So there is a continuous stream of work which is coming in your backlog, and from backlog it will come to your to do column. So this is actually a typical example where help desk team is or support based projects are quite relevant, because you focus on what needs to be delivered. Let us say maybe the work as it comes, and you may have some priority based on first in first out, or maybe if there is a major work or major ticket, you probably take it up before the low priority tickets. These are the main differences that I wanted to talk about in this video. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.